Alright guys, hope you're doing well. This is Rowlands here, and in this video I want to talk about minerals and emotions, especially toxic minerals, because one of the major things for people to learn and to understand is what happens when we go through healing reactions. Healing reactions is basically things that shouldn't be in the body coming out of the body. So it might be a toxic metal, it might be a biounavailable toxic mineral, it could be a chemical, it could be a trauma, it could be, a myriad of different things, whether it be physical or energetic. And, sometimes you got to let go of things around you. But in this video, I'm specifically going to discuss minerals, toxic metals, and just basically explain some of the symptoms that you are likely to be experiencing when you remove them. Because when you learn these, it's going to help you. It's going to help you navigate things much easier. So on Dr. Wilson's website, you can check out all of the toxic metal articles, and there'll be even longer lists of some of the symptoms that you would experience. But I'm just going to talk about some of the main ones and emotionally what tends to happen. So whenever you're sort of detoxing like aluminium, if you're in the UK, generally you're going to get sort of forgetfulness, numbness in the brain. But the most common one is just sort of forgetting stuff and not being able to remember obvious things that you've been able to remember in the past. So that's really common. The thing is, when you dump in aluminium, usually you're dumping it also with iron and manganese. We call these the amigos. So when all these three tend to rise and fall together, so when you dump in aluminium, you're often dumping iron and manganese. Iron, when you dump iron, that tends to make people angry. And when you dump in manganese, that tends to make people, we call it manganese madness. So you can sort of feel like you're going a little bit mad. It's difficult to explain, but when you actually explain it, when you're actually experiencing it, you understand what people mean by the term manganese madness. Your brain's just all over the place, and you can't really catch your thoughts, and you're going off into weird places, and that's manganese. So, there's been times in the program when I've been dumping amigos, and I'll be like forgetful one minute, angry the next, and then next minute I feel like I'm losing the plot, and then I'm like, oh, I'm having an amigo dump, because that brings you back down to earth somewhat by at least realising what's going off. That's free covered. Another important one would be nickel. So we call nickel the suicide mineral. It has a lot to do with basically suicidal thoughts. It's very odd that all of a sudden, maybe you just start thinking these sort of thoughts, and if you don't understand what's going on, you just start thinking, oh, well, I'm getting worse, things aren't really improving for me. But in reality, you're releasing nickel. Arsenic is another common metal that people release on the program. Arsenic has a very sort of dark feeling. Everything feels dark and a bit bland and a bit gloomy. Sometimes it's difficult to really figure out when you're dumping arsenic, but it's a very just dark, gloomy feeling. That's probably the best way to explain it. For whatever reason, I've dumped a lot of arsenic. I think it's because I used to drink a lot of red wine. Usually with arsenic, sometimes it can take me a few days to realise, oh wow, maybe this is arsenic, because it's a slow. Dr. Wilson calls it a slow death mineral. It's very sort of slow. All of us, you sort of slowly get into this dark state over the space of a few days or whatever. So then we can sort of talk about copper. So copper's a very sort of neurotic metal when it starts to be released by the body. When you're releasing copper, usually it comes with a lot of with physical symptoms. So sometimes it can be easier to know when you're dumping it. Usually, if you're dumping a lot of it, you'll tend to get like pains in the shoulders, like shooting pains going up the shoulders. The mind is like a beehive. It's just going bum 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 like a pinball. Usually, you can't sleep. You get buzzing sensations. Emotions is usually fear and anxiety, increased anxiety. And sometimes other symptoms like you could get skin rashes, candida die-off in the stomach, because coppers, when it's released, when it makes its way into the stomach, it's a very potent candida killer. So yeah, when you're going through like a fairly heavy copper dump, usually you'll get multiple symptoms at once, unlike some other metals. Another common one is mercury. So mercury is a difficult one sometimes to realise whether it's coming out or not, but one that's really prominent that I've noticed is just uninteresting stuff. You lose interest in stuff really easy, especially relationships in general, whether it be with your partner or whether it be with friends and family. You're not interested in meeting up with people, which is really strange. But usually it's to do with mercury, and you get sort of a sort of dark, gloomy feeling as well. Then you've got other heavy metals like arsenic and lead, cadmium and lead. One of the biggest problems with cadmium and lead is that they tend to be really difficult to remove, on a hair mineral analysis test. So sometimes it's challenging to even know when you're removing them at all. But they're very similar, I suppose, to arsenic, where you get sort of a dark, gloomy sensation. But the thing is, with lead and cadmium, usually you don't really start seeing these coming out of the body in large amounts until further on down the line in the program, a few years. One of the reasons I would imagine is because they're more heavier metals on the sort of periodic table, especially lead. So the body struggles to really push it out of the body. Cadmium sort of tends to accumulate in joints when you release it, so you might get really bad joint pain in the knees or in the elbows. That's usually a sign of removing cadmium. Unlike aluminium, which is a very, very light metal, which tends to just come out of the body quite easily, and you see aluminium quite high on most people's tests. So that's it. It's going to be a short and sweet video, but it's very, very, very important. I would go and read all of them that I've talked about on Dr. Wilson's website for a much, much more better understanding of each one. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Catch you soon.